So for my documentary review, I chose the first topic that was titled Crack, Cocaine, Corruption, and Conspiracy. It was a very, very interesting documentary. The documentary starts off by saying, introducing cocaine. So cocaine and crack, they are the same thing, except that crack is powder. Pause. Cocaine is powder, crack is a rock, but they both give you the same high. So in the 80s, cocaine started being more acceptable socially because of the movie Scarface. In Scarface, he started using cocaine, and cocaine was like something only the rich people did, people on Wall Street, like people with money. So it was like, if you did cocaine, like, you had money. So it was like people would like do anything kind of to like find a way to do it. And then they figured out a way that to make cocaine a different way, which is crack. And crack ended up being way more cheaper than cocaine. And in the urban areas especially, it took a big toll. It was called like the crack epidemic because crack was literally everywhere. There was so much crack, it was everywhere. It was in a way beneficial, but at the same way it wasn't beneficial, because in the beginning, in the early 80s, there was I think it was Reagan, he was in office. A whole bunch of people ended up being unemployed, so it was like the people who are from the urban areas end up being even poorer, and then crack ended up coming to the streets, and it was so addicting. So there ended up being a whole bunch of drug dealers, and that in a way like helped, because like minimum wage at McDonald's was like $3 and something at the time before taxes. So people just prefer to be a drug dealer because usually like crack, it'll come in like a container like this big. They were really small, like crack rock, and it'll be like $20 for one, and like people would ask for it all the time. It was very accessible. There was a whole bunch of white people coming to the hood just for crack because it was cheaper and it was just so accessible. So it was beneficial in the urban areas because they ended up they weren't as like poor as they were, but as time kept on going, it got worse because the gang violence ended up appearing and stuff because like, these 3 blocks are mine, you can't come in my territory. And that's when a whole bunch of violence started appearing, and a whole bunch of other things. Like so many young people died, and lots of people died in the crossfire. There wasn't even a part of the crack epidemic. The documentary also stated that crack killed like black people more than like the KKK, because it was just so addicting. And it was really sad because a whole bunch of people like lost their lives because of crack. They talked about some guy named Len Bias. Len Bias was an African-American college basketball player. He was up there with Michael Jordan. He was a really good basketball player. He was so good, he got he went to the University of Maryland. He was supposed to go to the Boston Celtics. Isn't that football? Anyways, he was supposed to be a part of the Boston Celtics. Then all of a sudden he dies of a heart attack. And they ended up finding out that he had crack in his system. So they said that crack was like really like powerful, that was basically like a wake-up call to like the black community, because it was like, Apparently it was like his first time doing crack, and I think they said it was like at a university party or something, and he just like died of a heart attack. That was like really upsetting. And the documentary, it just opened up my eyes because there was just so much discrimination going on. It was insane. Like, they was talking about how there was this one Caucasian nurse. She would like talk to her patients and be like, yeah, do you do crack? Like, how much? Blah blah blah, just saying like all this stuff. And then like 2 pregnant women who were about to give birth, and then after like the women gave birth, like they'll automatically get put into handcuffs because crack was illegal. That is messed up. And that's also a HIPAA violation, because it's like, how are you going to tell the cops what I am doing? Healthcare providers are not allowed to be doing that. I don't know if like HIPAA was around in the 80s, but that is really messed up and really racist, because if a white person was to tell her she was doing crack, she wouldn't have cared. But since it was like black women and stuff, it was a problem, which was insane. And there was also this one lady in the documentary, I forgot what her situation was, but she was an addict to crack, and I forgot where she went. She went somewhere, and instead of her like getting the help she needed, like going to rehab, they just arrested her. I'm not sure if rehab existed at the time, but it was messed up because like she should have gotten the help, but since she was an African American lady, they locked her up just because she did crack. She was an addict to crack. And the insane part was that in 1986, I think Reagan was still president, I'm not sure, they signed like an act stating that it was the anti-drug deal, stating that listen to this, they signed a deal stating that 5 grams of crack is equivalent to 500 grams of cocaine, and the minimum sentence was 5 years. You could do up to 40. What? That blew my mind, because that's insane, because the majority of the people who did crack were black. So if they had 5 grams on them, 5 grams, they can go to they could do 5 to 40 years in jail. That's insane. Whereas like if a white person was to have 500 grams of cocaine, they could do 5 to 40 years. At that time, they labeled it as being the same, which is insane. Like 5 grams compared to 500. And then in 1988, 2 years later, they changed the rule again, stating that you were criminalized for having any amount of crack. And that just made things even worse. The police definitely took advantage of that. What they ended up doing was that, let's say like 2 people ended up arrested, and let's say one person had like 10 grams of crack and the other person didn't. What they would do is that they would like split it. Like they'll get 5 grams, take 5 grams for one person, and there was 10, so they'll give 5 grams and give it to the person that didn't have any, and give them a charge just because, not even having the crack. Like the cops at the time, they were like really corrupt. They just was locking up all of these black people. It was insane. And it was like crazy too, because lots of times the cops, they would like steal money. They would rob like drug dealers, and they would take like the crack and they will sell it to like fellow police officers or like the people that they knew, just to make money, because crack was just that crazy and that accessible. And it was insane as well, because in the documentary, like, people would do anything for crack. Like, this drug is insane. Like, in the documentary, some lady from Missouri, She traded in her newborn son for a gram of crack that cost $20 just because she wanted crack. Like, that is insane. The documentary was also stating how there were women who would give blowjobs to drug dealers in exchange for a gram of crack. It was insane. Like, people would do anything for this drug. Literally anything. And the thing about crack, the way they do it is that they use a pipe. And if they didn't have a pipe, they would use like, you know, the soda cans that they're like this, like the aluminum ones, I think it is. They'll use that as a pipe, and it'll literally like work as a pipe. And something very interesting that I found as well is that you get an instant high from crack. It takes 5 to 15 seconds to get high off of crack, which I thought was insane, because I remember in class he was talking about different methods to reach to get like the high or whatever, and the different ways a drug can like enter your system. And literally, like, you know, with a crack pipe, you know, it's going down your lungs. It goes down your lungs, you know, directly into the bloodstream. 5 to 15 seconds, you're high instantaneously. I was like, wow. So yeah, this documentary was insane. It was interesting, and I enjoyed it.